So Nici Bush, welcome. So great to have you.
Great to be here, Shelley.
Well, I know that Mars has been an integral part of my household it was previously, but it especially has been between the amount of snacking for me and the feeding for my dog. So many, know Mars, I think, as a name, but maybe you could quickly just give us a little bit more about the brand and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about Mars and then a little bit about myself. So Mars is still a private family-owned business with over 100 years of providing consumers with great products and also services. And what I think most of us think about when we think about Mars is those consumer brands. So M&Ms, Twix. Twix is actually my favorite because I used to run the plant in Cleveland, Tennessee. And when it's hot off the line, it's just delicious. Pedigree, Royal Canin. But I think what many of us aren't, or certainly as aware of, is we also have a very significant services business, pet services and vet services. So Pet Partners, VCA, Banfield, just to name few. And in fact, we have 130,000 people that work for us. We call our people associates, and over 65,000 of them are actually in our vet hospitals and vet clinics, so just about half. And I've been very fortunate to work for Mars for many years. I'm in my 30th year across many different businesses. I spent my first 15 years in pet, and also worked as the head of supply and R&D for our chocolate business across the world, which, as you can imagine, when I had young kids, everyone thought I was like Willy Wonka coming home with new products. But I've been very fortunate to have a long and kind of a varied career. And now, obviously, after a long history in both operations and strategy, being able to now think about what does this mean for us when we think about workforce transformation and workplace transformation.
Wow. I mean, so you really, given just 30 plus years in the company, I would imagine that this new kind of hybrid work environment has been a real shift for you. Maybe will you talk a little bit of how you're thinking about hybrid work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing probably to say is that we're a very decentralized business that doesn't have a large global headquarters, and we're in over 80 countries around the world. And so we're used to being very distributed and having a very flexible environment where we're having to work in a hybrid way, even prior to the pandemic. So if I take the US, for example, we've had flexible working policies in place for over 15 years. So some of it is not new, but obviously some of it is new over the last 18, 20 months. And I think when we think about hybrid work, I think it's important to think about what's the why behind all of this. And for us at Mars, the why is about our purpose. And our purpose is around the world we want tomorrow starts with how we do business today. And the world we want tomorrow, everyone is thriving. People are thriving. And so when we think about hybrid work, we think about what can we do that allows our associates to thrive, customers, consumers, and our pet parents to thrive as well. And so the way we started this was very much with our associates, not to our associates. So we talked to over 1,000 associates in more of a user centricity, design thinking type approach to really gather kind of information of what people were experiencing, and very much what you shared in your stats in the introduction around the hybrid paradox. People are looking for, and our own associates were looking for, 97% of them looking for more than occasional flexibility, but they were also missing some of that face-to-face connection. But in a business, as you said, in terms of consumer products and retail, over 75% of our associates are frontline workers in working in factories, vet clinics, retail ourselves. We have M&M World Stores, and therefore it's not a one size fits all. And we need to sort of think through how do we provide principles instead of really rigid policies. So I think that's some of the way we're thinking about it as we approach this very complex journey.
Well, I love what you shared because, and I was writing it down, sort of the world we want tomorrow. I think sometimes we, in the middle of all this, we think we're solving for today, but you're grounding yourself in your distributed model, but looking for the world that you want tomorrow. Tell us a little bit. I think, it's hard for people, especially now, to understand how they're going to unlock value. At the end of the day, we have to unlock value. So, are there ways in which you're already seeing that this hybrid work adoption is unlocking value from Mars Incorporated?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we go back to, we want to deliver seamless experiences, and I think you said that in your introduction, for our associates, for our customers, for our patients, and our clients. It's really about what can we do in an environment. And many of us had to myth bust very quickly at the start of the pandemic. So if I go back to the 65,000 associates that work in vet clinics, in the course of a few days, we moved to curbside drop-off so that you as a pet parent, myself as a pet parent, could safely drop off your pet at the vet. The vet clinic could also remain safe, and everybody could put in those safety procedures and do that, obviously enabled by technology. What we have also seen is telehealth, and even in vets, which you'd think would be slightly more difficult than a human conversation about what's wrong with me, that's gone up triple digit through the pandemic, and that offers a hybrid choice around whether you go into a clinic or whether you do that from home. And that's really important because we've seen through the pandemic that now 70% of US households own a pet, and that's the highest it's ever been. And so as we think about hybrid working in the future, we need to make sure we enable those pet parents in when they move back to offices. And we also have a support, and if any of the people listening need support around how do you get a pet-friendly office, that's certainly something we do ourselves. So people in a hybrid environment can bring pets to the office so that they're not worried about leaving new pets at home. And I think that the final thing, if I think about our own associates, I said we're distributed, we're very decentralized. We know that we want to get out to our markets, we want to get out to our factories, but actually digital has really enabled us to blend physical visits with digital visits. And having spent most of my career in supply and doing a lot of travel looking at factories, it's amazing now the connections you can get through a digital conversation, a digital factory visit, a digital market visit. And so I think there are some practical ways we've already been able to make this work for ourselves in the first 18 months, and that's only the start.
I love what you said, Nici, because from sort of and I know I've been able to take advantage of it, sort of a telehealth visit for a pet, which, for all of us who are working, sometimes you do want to take your pet in and maybe curbside, but being able to do a quick visit like this is so much more efficient. So there's like a customer payout immediately, but also sort of all the way back to maybe your Twix experience, sort of the remote operations of a factory. I always say technology is good when you don't even know it's there. And those are both, incredible examples of how, we're doing that together, and also how you're innovating for tomorrow. What would some lessons learned in the last 18 months, maybe a couple biggest lessons you've learned?
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly the first place you tend to think about when you think about hybrid working is where. So your brain naturally goes to, where are you going to get work done? I think one of the biggest lessons we learned through the associate interviews, and also through talking to other businesses and experts in the field, is it's much broader than that. It's absolutely about reimagining not just where you work, but how and when you work. And when you talk to maybe young mums who are trying to balance many different challenges, people who are dealing with elderly parents, many of us have got all sorts of different needs we need to meet. When it can be really powerful if I can do something in the morning and someone else is looking at it in the evening. And so one of the biggest learnings I've had is really think about the total associate experience, not just it through the lens of where work gets done. And as we think about total associate experience, we also think about, many of us on this call think a lot about what have we done in a retail experience. We use real-time data to make sure that a customer has a fantastic experience in a retail environment. And we're no different when we think about M&M World stores. We need to think about this now for our own associates. What's the fantastic experience they need to have when they do come to an office or they do come to a face-to-face location? Because we know that someone's cognitive ability is in fact affected by environment. And so offices need to be an experience that people really get value from, and we use data in order to do that, rather than just a constant in the equation. I suppose my background, I'm a scientist, and so I think about the fact that offices used to be a constant, and now they're a variable in the equation of how work gets done.
It's so interesting hearing you talk. I am not a scientist. I am inspired by you. But in a way, it actually brings memories to me of even what we talked about in retail 5 years ago, that the store has to be an experience, given the rise of the e-commerce channel, and that you have to have a reason to get in your car, pay the parking, or, leave kids, bring kids, all that. And so you have to deliver an experience that's unique that you wouldn't get online. And in a way, what you're saying is we have to think the same way about the office. And I love that it's not just the where, because I think a lot of the hybrid discussion has been about the where, but it's the when and the how, which is so important. So I'm sure you and I could talk for hours. But as we think about, advice you would give the audience watching today, what would be some of those pieces of advice?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a reflection on advice that say, this is an area where everyone has an opinion, right? So whether you talk to someone that you meet, now that we're maybe spending a little bit more time being able to get together, everyone has an opinion on, where, how, and when they work. And there are no neutral views. And so it's a very strong kind of emotional topic. And there are no definitive answers. And so in that environment, my advice would be we need to continue to listen, and we need to use data and principles. So it's not about rigid policies, it's about principles. And so as I think about some of the principles that we've put together, obviously hybrid working around doing work which best in an environment that best fits the activity, and really thinking about that rather than particularly the percentage of time in office, percent of time at home. I also think about office, and we talked about that, but also things like what are our principles around travel? Travel and thinking through how digital has enabled us and reducing travel. And one of our principles is to think about reducing that by hopefully around half of our pre-pandemic levels will make a big difference to the associate health and well-being. When you travel a lot, there's certainly a lot of tax on your own body, but it's also a big impact on a family. And then meetings as well. So for me, and what I would say is think about principles, not rigid policies, and let's just keep listening. We don't have all the answers.
Wow. So listen, use the data, and then really think more about principles versus policies. Those are tangible pieces of advice that I'm going to take back for myself as well. A huge thank you to you for joining all of us today. I hope if you're willing, you'll come back again and share how you're how we're navigating this journey together. But Nici, huge thank you for joining all of us today.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it.